Oh, because she said when I start.
One sec, Steve. Okay, we're all ready, Steve, when you are. All right, howdy everybody. Welcome to the, hello Leonard. Welcome to the August 24th, 2016 meeting of the Midcoast Community Council. Greetings. We're going to start with council member self-introductions, starting on my left.
Dan Haggerty.
Lisa Ketchum.
Laura Stein.
Dave Olson.
And I am Chris Johnson. Aaron Deinzer's not here tonight, is that? And Claire Toutant, also not here
Chris,
tonight.
can I make an announcement real quick? It's very time sensitive.
Sure.
Since this meeting plays back Thursday night at 8 o'clock, tomorrow night at 7:30, there's a Granada Community Services District special meeting that's all parks agenda items.
So that's a GCSD meeting, not a GPAC meeting specifically?
Right.
Okay. And it starts at 7:30?
There's closed session at 7, which I have to recuse myself from. And then the regular session is at 7:30. And the big agenda item is to discuss the GPAC recommendation on the school district property.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that, Leonard. Yes, I was going to make that announcement, but thank you for doing that. Okay, moving on to the Board of Supervisors report. Oh, there she is. Hi, Ellie. Ellie Dahlman from Supervisor Horsley's office.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ellie Dahlman. I'm here on behalf of Supervisor Horsley's office, and I have 3 updates for you. So the first update is regarding this preliminary planning study document, Highway 1 Congestion and Safety Improvement. Some of you may be familiar with it. It is available online if anyone wants to take a look at it, but I just wanted to let the Midcoast Community Council know that yesterday Supervisor Horsley and I met with the TA, with Caltrans, County Public Works, and Planning to kick off next steps for implementation of the preliminary planning study. And at the meeting, we had a rather lengthy discussion, and the group thought that rather than move forward with all of the projects at the same time, the group agreed that due to the amount of funding that is available, that remains from the grant that we received from the TA, and due to the good opportunity to demonstrate in one location flashing crosswalk beacon lights on a state highway, they thought the best thing to do would be to move forward with the Gray Whale Cove improvements. So I believe it was alternative 1, which is included in the preliminary planning study that was vetted by the community, and after looking at the cost estimate that we have, it looks like rather than trying to begin all the projects and not have enough funding to do any of them, the choice was to move forward with Gray Whale Cove because we have enough funding to get it from design through to construction, and kind of use that improvement as an opportunity to see how the flashing beacons that were selected by the community function on the state highway. And the state is on board with using this location as a starting point for implementation. Yeah, as I mentioned, the study is online for anybody that wants to look at the more details of the drawing that was put together for Gray Whale Cove Alternative 1.
You say this takes all the way through construction or to construction?
My understanding is that it would go through to construction, through completion of the project, which means it would be fully constructed.
Okay.
The TA grant that we received was, I believe it was $1.5 million, and about $250,000 was used to complete the preliminary planning study. So there's about $1.25 million remaining that would allow us to get the Gray Whale Cove location based on the cost estimates from the preliminary planning study, initial design through to completion. So that's the update on the preliminary planning study. Second, I just wanted to let everybody know that San Mateo County is participating for the 2nd year in a row in the Bike and Pedestrian Count. It's an annual count where volunteers can sign up for 2-hour time blocks during the week between September 12th and 18th. They'll be doing some mornings, some evenings, as well as weekends. And there are locations along the Midcoast and into the South Coast. So anybody that's interested in participating, you can email bikepedcountsmc@gmail.com. I also left some flyers in the back.
And what is we're just trying to get basically doing a traffic study for bikes and peds?
Yeah, so it would give traffic engineers or planners an idea of what is the current foot traffic and bike traffic. And it would help in kind of planning for future transportation-related projects.
Okay.
And the last thing that I just wanted to let everybody know, on a week from this Friday, September 2nd at 11 a.m., we will be doing a ribbon cutting ceremony for Surfers Beach. So that's Friday, September 2nd at 11 a.m. I left some invitations, flyers in the entryway, but we really want to invite anyone and everyone from the community that would be interested in attending. It should be a nice gathering. We'll have quite a few people speaking, including the chair of the Midcoast Community Council, and so we're really looking forward to that. And that's all I have today.
Does anybody on the council have any questions for Ellie? Any updates that they're looking for? Okay. Thank you, Ellie.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Is there going to be food at that ceremony?
I don't know.
I am in charge of providing the refreshments. They will be light, but probably just some, I don't know, muffins and juice or water.
Oh, no champagne?
Unfortunately not, no.
Muffins will work.
11 o'clock on September 2nd.
Oh, that's early for champagne.
Okay, now we will have public comment and announcements. I've got 3 speaker slips, four. If there's anybody who would like to make a comment on an item not specifically listed on the agenda tonight, now's your time. Please fill out a speaker slip, and I'll call on you in the order I received them. First up, Bill Kehoe.
Thank you, Council. Bill Keogh from West Beach. I actually, I missed the last meeting, as it was pointed out to me when I came in here. And I was very saddened to see the way the letter about the short-term rentals was gutted. I attended pretty much all the short-term rental meetings up to that point. And I just grossly remember about a 3-to-1 ratio of people from the community asking for tighter controls and less ambiguity in the definition of the short-term rental agreement, or whatever it was called. Ordinance, thank you. And going through it, I mean, there is some stuff left in there, but there's a lot of what would have been serving as community protection and a well-defined process and a clear understanding of what's allowed and not allowed seemed to be taken out. And that brought me back to the issues that we've had on the coast side with county ordinances from the get-go. The way people skirt the law that's already out there when it comes to additions, remodels, what have you. When you have ambiguous statements or lack of definition, it just gives them ways to get around it. And as a person who has complained to the ordinance or to the enforcement group, they pretty much won't follow up on something if it's not clearly defined. So I felt that you didn't do the community justice on that. I think that if you go back and you look at the original bylaws, the whole idea of the community council from the get-go, the past 20 some odd years, was that people come to the council, they express their desires, and your vote, your letters, your comments are supposed to reflect what is said to you in this meeting. And I didn't see that. I didn't see that. So I watched a little of it. As I said, I looked at the original document. I don't have it in front of me. But a lot of the stuff that would at least help to clearly define it wasn't there. And I really think you need to reconsider, because it's going to cause problems later on. I can already see that in complaints, in enforcement, what can happen. So You know, I thank Dave and whoever else worked with him on that original letter. I didn't think, I saw that letter, and that's one of the reasons I didn't come. I said, well, it pretty much covers everything, and I had another conflict that night. And when I got home, and on my voicemail, there was a message to me. It's like, are you kidding me? So, anyway, you could have done better. Thanks.
Thanks, Bill. Marcia Yates.
Moss Beach, Marcia Yates, resist density. As you know, I am against the Mid-Penn development proposals of A, B, and C, as they have not addressed the road structure, traffic mitigation, or the inadequate parking. And these issues are huge. Well-planned, properly placed projects use our public funds more effectively, and this project is not well-planned or well-placed. Also, there is a proposed 31-unit hotel in Montara. Even more alarming is the rumor of the 200-plus living units on the farmland below Hoffman Bay High School, which would make the Main Street Highway 1 intersection a totally and completely impossible passageway. Pacifica has on their November ballot Measure W to authorize 206 multifamily units 4 stories tall at the quarry site. That development will kill the Highway 1 corridor through Pacifica and beyond. I say vote no on Measure W. So I'm here to reinforce the message of additional untethered development will affect traffic exponentially because it's a fact that's cumulative. So remember, resist density. To start, say no to Mid-Penn. Thank you.
Thanks, Marcia. Barbara Mathewson.
Hi, I'm Barbara Mathewson from Moss Beach. I'm one of the founding members of Resist Density. I just want to introduce myself officially as one of the candidates for the 2-year position on the Midcoast Council. And if I win, I look forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
Thanks, Barbara. Leonard Warren.
Three things. I want to agree with Bill, but put the right spin on it. Council members are here to gauge the community's opinion on things and make recommendations in keeping with the majority of the community, and I don't think that's what was done with the short-term rental ordinance, the way it was gutted, and I was just appalled sitting here watching it get gutted. Second thing, it's that time of year when they're recruiting volunteers to do first flush. The email says, first flush is the first big rain of the season where polluted stormwater enters the storm drains and flows into the ocean. The RCD runs the event in San Mateo County with the help of many partners and several funders. So if anybody's interested, it's kind of a fun thing to do. Unfortunately, it's by definition during bad weather and most of the time in the middle of the night. But you can contact RCD, and I don't want to take the time right now to read all the contact information, but the primary person is Kaina Meyer at Resource Conservation District, and they're having training coming up September 10th at 9 a.m., so I assume that's a Saturday. Third thing, doing house cleaning, I came across a document put together by former Half Moon Bay City Council member Dennis Coleman, titled Coastside Capacity Report, a compilation of public information on the sustainability of current build-out trends. This is version 1 dated April 1998. And as I said in an email that I sent out to a handful of people, if he were here now and I brought this up, he would say, I told you so. Only I think it's probably worse than he predicted. So I'm getting rid of my 2 printed copies. I'm kind of thinking maybe pass one to the resist density people. And I scanned it. It's on my website, but I'm hoping that Lisa will pick it up and find a home for it on the Midcoast Council website. So if you want to pass this down to Chris. It's a one-sided document, and I ended up scanning it twice because I did duplex the first time and had to toss that and try it again. So it looks like a big hunk of paper, but And it really is heavy reading. Basically, he put together all of the data regarding road capacity, sewer capacity, water capacity, school capacity, and the funding for all of those, and it's not a pretty picture, and I'm telling you, it's worse than he predicted. So that should be used as inspiration and maybe a starting point to push the county back into their hole.
Thanks for this, Leonard. I'm a paper guy, so thank you. Okay, anybody else have a public comment on an item not on the agenda? Okay. Closing public comments, announcements from the MCC. Do any council members have an announcement they'd like to make?
Yes, we currently have openings on the Coastside Design Review Committee. We need an alternate for Montera, an alternate for El Granada and Miramar. Those are community representatives, and we need an architect.
Other than that.
Well, surprisingly, we are actually more heavily staffed than we've been for a long time.
Yes.
But we still have those, and those are alternate
Those are
openings, thank
alternates.
goodness. At least we have the primary in there now. Thank you for that update, Laura. I would like to announce that with regard to the MCC, the open seats, the 3 4-year seats that come open this November are uncontested. The 3 incumbents, I believe, have filed their paperwork for that. And so those seats will be uncontested. There's 1 2-year seat, but Erin Deinzer is officially resigning effective, I believe, October 31st. And her seat is up for her remaining term, which is 2 years. We have 2 candidates that have filed papers for that. One has introduced herself here tonight, Barbara Mathewson. The other is Brandon Kwan. They both live in Moss Beach. And so we'll have 2 candidates vying for that 1 seat. Laura, did you want to say anything about forums, candidate forums?
Not yet.
Okay.
They're up and coming. Yes, we're going to be sponsoring with the League of Women Voters candidate forms for the MWSD, Montero Water and Sanitary, Midcoast Community Council, Cabrillo Unified School District, and the Harbor Commission. But we don't have the dates settled as of yet.
We do have October 4th
Oh, yes.
for Montero Water Sanitary and MCC. Those will be on the same night. We just don't have a confirmed venue.
We'll see.
Other stuff is still in play.
Great.
That's a Tuesday. October 4th is a Tuesday.
Right.
Don't have to tell me.
Agree with you on that, Bill. Okay. Any other announcements from the council? Okay. We're going to move along to the consent agenda.
Oh,
We
can
have-
I just, I'm sorry,
yeah.
can I just interject? Maybe this is getting the cart before the horse, but I just wanted to stress that the next no, it's not the next one. The first Harbor District meeting in October, which is September 7th, where the Harbor District September 7 meeting in Half Moon Bay is important to attend. If
October
I misspoke. We're talking about September. I'll take a breath now. So, September 7th, Harbor District in Half Moon Bay is important to attend if you are interested in their choice of coastal protection along the West Trail. That's what they'll be talking about. We had that on our agenda here when we last met, and there's a letter on consent tonight about reflecting what was discussed that night, which could be useful for talking points. So basically, the package would be, we had our discussion here, we have a letter from the MCC, but it's very important for people to go to that meeting and say that's what they want, whatever it is you want. That's all. Yes, it's at 6:30 p.m. at Seacrest School, Think Tank Room 19, and that's at 901 Arnold Way in Half Moon Bay, September 7th.
At what time?
6:30.
6:30.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. And dovetailing on that, from that, we have the consent agenda. We have 2 items on the consent agenda tonight, the minutes from July 27th, the meeting Lisa was referencing, and also a letter to the San Mateo County Harbor Commission in support of Pillar Point Harbor West Shoreline Trail Erosion Protection. Great letter, definitely check it out. I guess I maybe shouldn't have said that before we vote, but I personally feel that way. You can vote however you choose. Anyways, do I hear a motion on the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, 6-0. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the regular agenda. We have one item on the agenda tonight, again, that I am personally excited about. We've got Jason Mansfield here to present the designs and the CEQA document for the segment of the, this side. Segment of the parallel trail, the multimodal trail, that's going to run from Coronado down to Murata, past Del Medio Creek in the south. We looked at this, I'm trying to remember when we last had this. Earlier this year, we had original design plans, and Mike Schaller, the planner, and Jason both listened, and they've modified the design a little bit. We also have the environmental document with potential environmental issues and mitigation strategies for those. And Jason is going to make a presentation on this tonight, show us the updates, answer questions, and one of the focuses here tonight for the MCC is to gather the feedback, provide feedback to Jason, but also kind of gather comments. The comment period for this document ends on September 9th. So our next meeting at the MCC is not till September 14th. So we will need to gather the comments and for a comments letter tonight. And so we will not have another chance to do that before the comment period ends. So please keep that in mind, both public and MCC council members. Okay, Jason.
Great, thank you, Chair. And hopefully the PowerPoint here comes up. I'm Jason Mansfield with BKF Engineers. I'm the project manager for this project for the County of San Mateo. And great. And we've, as Chris mentioned, we've prepared 30% design plans. We've come to the council a couple times to listen to some input and developed the plans to that point. And at that point, we were comfortable moving forward with a CEQA document. So we were able to look at the specific impacts and mitigations for the project that satisfy state requirements for CEQA and environmental studies. So we did some environmental studies and came up with these mitigations and have developed this mitigated negative declaration document, which, as you mentioned, the public comment period ends on September 9th. That's this next Friday, I believe, or 2 Fridays from now. Those comments can be emailed to Mike Schaller. He's the planner at the county. And all that information is, and the document itself is also on the county's website, or actually the Midcoast Community Council website. Please keep in mind that the CEQA document is a state-governed environmental document. I'm sure most of you are familiar with it, but there's specific criteria that we go through on that. And so that's what we would like to hear comments on, but of course I'm here to listen to any comments you have, and we'll take that, and hopefully as we develop the project, we can incorporate some of that, if not all of it. So again, the proposed trail alignment from Coronado all the way down to where Half Moon Bay ended their project, more or less. And on the east side of Highway 1, and we've tried to push it away from the highway as much as possible. But there's a couple spots that are a little bit closer based on environmental constraints and that sort of thing. So I'll go through each individual, or a couple of interesting spots along the alignment and some key features here.
Can you describe where the edge of the highway is on that drawing?
It's the thicker, sort of shaded, dashed area, kind of along the bottom of all those little segments. And we're generally about 60 feet away from the highway. Let's see, so yeah, as we go through here, we start at Coronado. There was some comments about, people making the right turn off of Highway 1, and they sort of slide right through the middle here and make the right. down towards downtown. And so one suggestion was to look at a median. And we thought that that was a good idea because it actually provides a little pedestrian refuge there. So if, you know, if there's a traffic signal there, if they can't make it across or for whatever reason they need to stop in the middle of the road, it gives them a safe place, 6 foot wide standard width for them to wait, pedestrians or bicyclists on foot. Right now, we're just showing a slightly larger sort of landing area around the curb ramp where the trail ends there, and some bollard lights. You know, this is really still preliminary. We're going to go back after this and get some detailed topographic survey. Right now, we have a really sort of rough base on here. So once we get the more detailed information, we can really fine tune some of this and expect some of it to change. It's not going to change substantially unless I hear some comments or we learn some new things, but I don't expect it to change dramatically, just some minor tweaks here and there. And then there's the fire road access that goes up into the park space there. So we are trying to bring the trail around that. Actually, we're going to probably try and push it back a little bit further, but there are some constraints. We've got the overgrowth willow patch there. There's a non-jurisdictional wetland that comes down to a culvert, and also it's an archaeologically sensitive, culturally sensitive area, and so we want to be careful with the amount of impact we have. So to the extent we can keep it in sort of developed area, already developed area, that's what we're going to try to do. And this is one area where we really need more detailed topographic survey before we can feel comfortable that the alignment and location of the trail is a really good one. But we do want to make sure it's protected with bollards from the vehicles that come in. We understand that large trucks use it, that people actually park there even though maybe they are supposed to, maybe they're not allowed to. but still, you know, people do certain uses there, and we want to make sure that we're not precluding some of that use, but also make it safe for the bicycles and pedestrians. As I mentioned, there's the willow thicket with a retaining wall, and one thing we heard was maintain the shoulder through there, because we don't want bikes to, if they're riding on the roadway, serious long distance bicyclists and that sort of thing, they're going to want to ride on the road and not on the trail. And so we wanted to maintain 8-foot shoulder there, which pushed the trail further out into the thicket and gives us a little bit higher retaining wall. So it's a little more cost, but we thought that that was a good idea. Caltrans also agreed that that was a good idea. They liked having that dual potential for bicyclists to travel through there. So here's a little cross section of it. It shows you that we've got maintained the 8-foot shoulder. There's still some details to work out here. The last time we met with the county and went through some of the comments from the council was, you know, we want this to look like a rural trail and not a highway accoutrement or add-on. You know, so to the extent we can select certain Caltrans standard pieces and maybe paint them to match other aspects of the trail for continuity. So one thought was there's further down, we'll get to it, but there's going to be a bridge over a creek, and it's similar to a bunch of the bridges you see around here with a truss on either side. It's probably brown, and you know, it looks kind of rural, it looks nice, and so we thought maybe we can sort of try to duplicate that here. So instead of like a standard metal beam guardrail, there's also another standard that's sort of more just structural steel kind of, and we thought we could maybe use that and paint that brown to match, and it would sort of look similar, kind of the same look and feel. There's a couple other considerations too. So in addition to making sure it's Caltrans standard, especially the barrier along the highway, you know, is to have a fence so that people don't fall one way or the other over it. And then along the willow thicket, you know, we want to make sure that it's still maintainable for the county. So we don't want the willow thickets to grow over the trail here. And so to the extent we can either contain it or have a railing or fence that allows the county to be able to maintain the thicket without too much effort. You know, that's a further discussion we're going to have with the county maintenance and see what really makes sense. But that's the current thought there, and as I say, it's continuing to evolve. And then we've got various crosswalks or crossings of the driveways and roadways. So the idea is to make it sort of really obvious that pedestrians and bicyclists are crossing here. You know, it's tough to try to make it meet the state and federal standards for signage and markings without it being too, you know, out of place. We want it to still fit in, but still be obvious. So I think, you know, part of it is lighting, part of it is markings, but also some signage, both for the pedestrians and bicyclists, but also for the vehicles. We want to make sure that everybody's aware that this is a crossing right here, and expect that there could be some conflicts, and be prepared to stop for each other, ensure nobody gets hit. So we've done a little bit of traffic calming, you know, raise these crossings up so that vehicles have a tactile surface that they can tell, hey, there's something different here, and cinch it down visually with some curbing and maybe some grouted cobble or something in them, low maintenance, but you know, it's nice and maybe sort of coastal, right? But also with the bollard lights on either side. We heard that, you know, we don't want to have bollards in the middle, and similar to that, we also we wanted to have some little islands, curved islands in here to try to slow the bicyclists down as they approach it. And that was one idea and one thing we heard, and Caltrans liked it, but county maintenance and probably legal would not like it. It's a liability, just like the bollards. You know, anything that the bicyclists could crash into that's in the obvious path is a liability, right? And I think that makes sense. I think it protects everybody, the council and the county, from saying, you know, hey, let's put in some obstacle, right? So we've eliminated that and kept the way clear, but we tried to meander the path at the approaches so that hopefully bicyclists do slow down and don't just, you know, cruise right on through. So there's, as I say, a number of those, various sizes and impacts, but generally about the same style and features. It's just more of the detail. You know, we want to make sure that there's still passage for fire trucks and that sort of thing.
The lines that are painted there in the intersections,
Yeah.
do those have any textile character to them that would slow people down?
No, they're just thermoplastic markings on there.
So it's
but
like
they
this-
are raised crosswalks.
So it's like a speed hump.
Right. A speed hump.
What's the
General-
size of the bump?
Generally, they could be 6 inches. I don't think.
6-inch raise?
Right. I don't think we've specified it. Actually, no, we did.
6 inches?
We have it 2 inches, sorry.
1.5%.
Yeah, but it'll vary because they're on a slope. So I'd say at the low end, it could be about 6 inches. The higher end, it'll be about 2 inches.
It's enough to make it visual.
Right. You don't want to go over that, that's for sure, because it'll be an extreme hump. But humps are generally in the about 4-inch range. So
So what happens if you're on a bicycle and you're the cyclist here,
And what?
and you
It's
come
not a
upon-
speed hump for the bicyclists, it's a speed hump for the cars.
right.
And he was saying they were considering possibly
Yeah, I
putting a
can't wait.
speed hump for the bicyclists.
No.
But he read my mind, and like I was thinking, oh, I'll get some good air off of that.
Okay, yeah.
We don't want a
No.
BMX route here, so.
So yeah, it would be level for the cyclists and a little hump. for
Yeah.
the-
Yes, okay, got it.
And that's some of the detail we'll still need to work out with the topographic survey, because like I say, these are on sort of, sloped roadways, so we'll see how that works out, but we want to provide some sort of hump to it, but not extreme, so that there's no bumpers scraping, I think there's a guy who has a Ferrari or something.
And why not just paint this, why for certain the speed bump?
Well, we want to make sure that cars will slow down. I think some people tend to ignore paint on the ground. but they won't ignore an actual hump.
It's mostly an issue for people coming off the highway, not
Right.
getting on the highway.
And they'll generally,
It could be a bicyclist coming off the highway.
Well, and that's why it's not a very big slope.
yeah. And
If it's not your typical slope like this, it's like that.
What's the distance,
Pretty
Mike, do you
gradual.
know, from here to here?
I think we set it at something like 10 or 12 feet, but again, we'll need to look at it when we get the topographic survey. The downhill one might be longer at the final estimation, because otherwise it might be a little bit too dramatic. But it will be more significant as you come off the highway, because that is the lower end of the speed table there. All right. So this is an example of a bollard that, we might use. We're looking for something that would be durable, but also solar and not too dramatic. We wanted to make sure that it was downlighting, and so there was some limited number of bollard choices. Now, if any of you see one that you prefer, feel free to email me a link to it or something. We'll be happy to look at it. There's signage, an example of the signage. That's some of the signage for, of course, the vehicles. I don't think we have an example of the signage for the bikes and peds, but that's the idea, is we'll have, some typical signage for both.
What's the height above ground at the top of that bollard?
3 feet, I looked it up.
There we go, 3 feet. And then we've got the pedestrian bridge at the creek. So I think I've shown this before, but it's a pretty typical, similar to what you've seen on other bridges around here. Be powder coated brown, probably steel trusses. I think a wooden deck that would be with joints perpendicular to the bicycles, so we don't get the wheels stuck in them. So some typical bridge, but with some thought to it. And that's again the truss that we try, like right now we're trying to consider emulating for the willow thicket area. It will be an expensive option to add to there, so we need to look at the cost. We need to keep it under $3 million for the overall cost, as a reminder, for Caltrans encroachment permits. If we go over that, it becomes a really lengthy and expensive process through Caltrans. So we're trying to keep it under 3. Right now, we're at a 2.25, thereabouts. So adding this to, and that's without this railing at the willow thicket. So if we add this at the willow thicket, that starts creeping up the cost. It might be a few $100,000, but we need to look at that just to be sure. So again, this meeting though is mainly about the environmental document. So that's this next hurdle that we're trying to get past. And the comments that you can give us today, they are being recorded, and we'll take look at that recording, take all those comments and respond to them in the final environmental document that says, yeah, we looked at these environmental impacts and mitigated them, but we also heard community input, and this is how we addressed it. So that's what the CEQA document does. And ultimately, it's not the document that says that this project is approved or denied or anything like that. It's just to identify the impacts and what the mitigation should be and that sort of thing. So it's a pretty focused document. So our conclusion so far is that there's no impact for a few different criteria that we looked at. It was agriculture and forestry resources. No impacts there. No impacts to mineral resources, no impacts to population housing, recreation. And less than significant impacts to air quality, geology and soil, climate change, hazardous materials, land use and planning, noise, public services, utility service systems. So these are different grades of impacts or no impacts to these categories that we need to look at for CEQA. And then there's the less than significant once we have a mitigation. So these are the ones that we, are really more critical, that we looked at and said, all right, we need to mitigate these because there are some potential impacts, but we can mitigate them. So aesthetics, obviously we want it to blend in with the neighborhood and not be out of place, so we mitigated that. Biological resources, making sure that we're not impacting the frogs and the birds, nesting birds and things like that. Cultural resources, there is a culturally sensitive area, as I said. The mitigation there is we'll make sure we have an archaeologist on site. In fact, when we even do the geotechnical borings, we're going to have an archaeologist on site to ensure that there's no cultural resources impacted, or if there are, that we stop and address it appropriately. Hydrology and water quality, we'll mitigate those, and transportation and circulation, we'll mitigate that. So they would all be less than significant impacts. Again, the public comment period is 30 days standard for a CEQA document, which ends Friday, September 9th, and where the documents are available on the county's website and at the planning department of the county. And you can submit the comments to Mike, and we've got his address up here, or his email address. And that's the general overview. So we're open to comments, and like I said, they're being recorded so we can play it back and make sure that we address all the comments as part of the CEQA document.
Thanks, Jason. Appreciate that. Let me start with the council. Does the council have any clarifying questions on what Jason has presented or the CEQA document itself? Okay. All right.
I have
Dan, yes.
questions. So,
Great. Sorry, I didn't see you there.
On the intersections, I noticed it looks like they're gonna have the standard tactile pads at the crosswalks. The truncated dome pads. Yes.
At Coronado? Dan, at Coronado.
At
you mean?
Coronado we have that,
At Coronado?
Right.
I think that's the only one.
I think that's a good point. Actually, we do need to look at that for these crossings too. I'm not sure for a multi-use trail if that's required, because that's probably not good for bicyclists.
And skateboarders.
And yeah, you gotta be sure. And
Right.
the hoverboarders and the
Yeah. Walkers.
I'll double check that.
It seems locally, I guess just recently they adopted like a gray color. So
Oh, good point.
It would be great if it could blend in with, the others, so you don't have one color here and another color over there.
Yeah, there is a criteria for having it stand out for the visually
Right, I
impaired
think
people.
70% contrast
Right.
or something like that.
Right, but we
Yeah.
can have it be a color that, is a neutral color but still contrasts. Like you say, the light gray against a dark asphalt or something like that.
Yeah.
This is going to be a DPW project, right?
Correct.
And DPW has adopted the gray for the Midcoast, so I think
Oh,
you're
right.
good.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah, how about
DPW
it?
project.
Okay.
At least in part, thanks to
but-
our comments, mostly led by Dan.
Yep.
Which is great.
I don't know if the height, if there's much of a flexibility on the height of the dome, but I do think it will impact, the skateboarders and the scooters and all this stuff. So if that could be kind of, I don't know, whatever to minimize the impact on the people that are gonna be using the trail.
Okay.
On the speed bump concept there, has there been any other like alternatives ever looked at? For instance, instead of having it raised, but have like just enough grooves in the road approaching, just to kind of give it the visual or the tactile feel, but without this enormous raise in grade. You know what I'm getting at. I think you see them a lot of times in the middle of the road, how they remove some of the asphalt, and it's just enough to, you can feel it, it's there, and that would also give the same kind of like identifying effect that, hey, this is the area to slow down and you know, you're reminded that this is a spot of safety.
Yeah, we haven't looked at that specifically, but we can look at some alternatives for that, yeah.
Okay.
I think, you know, oftentimes the noise of cars driving over that, nearby residents.
Of course, it shouldn't be at a high speed, right?
Right.
This is a slowing, you know. Yeah.
Right, absolutely. But it'll still probably make some noise, right? I would expect.
Yeah, I
But-
guess there's different options.
And maybe there's some that don't provide the noise, you know, as much noise, but still provide that tactile
Right,
notification. So, yeah, we can take a look at that.
great.
Okay. Let's see, anybody else? Questions, clarifying questions? I had a question.
Comments, but not clarifying
Okay.
questions.
I had a question about the material for the truss bridges. I don't know if you've seen the new one they put in Half Moon Bay. I don't know what that material is, but it's got some kind of silver coating on it. I just rode over it the other day. That bridge looks like it's gonna last for a while. But if you go look at some of the other bridges that are steel bridges that, you know, maybe have some kind of powder coat on them, they're, you know, you can break off pieces with your hand. The rust here just gets to it right away, and that's what happened to the bridge that they just replaced.
Yeah.
Is that over time it deteriorates. So I guess my question for you is,
That wasn't a powder coating bridge, by the way.
the one that
It was not.
deteriorated?
It was Core 10, which is great when you're not right on the coast.
So then I would ask, would powder coating, would that solve this problem?
It'll slow it down. The new bridge, I believe, is aluminum, and we can take a look at that. I think that'll be more expensive, but again, you know, maybe we have some flexibility to fit that in the budget.
Okay, thanks,
So we'll
Jason.
take a look at that.
Do these require different levels of maintenance, these different types of bridges we're speaking of?
Yeah, and life expectancies too, you
Mhm.
know, and as you know, everything doesn't last quite as long here on the coast, so, to the extent we can have something that lasts a bit longer, you know, actually, in the long run, it's probably cheaper, right?
Jason, I also wanted to confirm, I did check the designs and it looks that way, but the low bollard lights are only at the road crossings. They're not gonna be spaced out
That's
along
right.
the section in between the road crossings, there'll be
That's
no lighting. Okay, good, okay.
Now, there may be one exception, where we might have it focused. You can see we've got a couple of connections that go up to the school.
Yeah.
And so we may put a couple of lights at those intersections of the trail.
Thank you.
Right. Exactly. So, you know, we may consider that.
Okay, good, okay.
When you talk about the total project cost limit,
Mhm.
and if it's getting to the point where it might go over, is there ever opportunity for some of the accoutrements to be just held off and paid for later? In order not to get into that Caltrans morass?
Sure, sure. Are there any ones that you have in mind?
Well,
in
I'm
particular?
just thinking, obviously, the bridge has to go in as it's gonna be, but railings and things like that, that they could be some temporary thing put up, and then after it's all closed out, and you could get, from a separate fund, you could get put that, I just wondered if that was a possibility.
I think it's always a possibility, but that's a tough one because usually once something goes in, you know, it's hard to add on to it, right? I mean,
Becomes another project with work approvals.
yeah. And it functions, right? So it's like, why spend more money?
Good
Orange,
enough.
orange netting, everybody would be eager to get rid of it.
Yeah, there you go. That's true. Very temporary. I get you.
I had a question for you, Jason, on page 11 of the environmental document. If we could go to an image of segment 3, the wetland trail of the private road. Yeah, there we go. Okay.
The private road or the road into the park? Where the willows are?
It's described as a private road here, but that's the one I'm talking about.
Okay.
The
Yeah,
one
there
where
is a
there's-
private road as well for the
Yeah, no,
south.
this is the one I'm
At the
talking about.
bridge. nearby.
So the document indicates in addition, and so it's sounding like the gate is like currently here, and you're gonna move it closer to the road?
Probably, I mean, we need to look at that closer. I wanna make sure that, you know, that we can get a vehicle in between so that they're not stopped on the trail, that sort of thing.
So, I mean, I don't have an objection to that, but the wording here is a little confusing. It says, in addition, a new gate and fencing at the entry to the private road will be located 40 feet from Highway 1. Okay, that, I get that. Which will replace the existing gate that is currently set back 120 feet from Highway 1. Got that. The trail will extend behind the fence in front of the wetland. So how does the trail get on the other side of the fence? Extend
Yeah.
behind the fence?
Are you talking about putting it here?
I think originally we might have had it there, and we've since decided that's not such a good idea.
The trail will stay
Just
on
putting-
the west side of the fence?
Yeah, so I think that might have been residual from
Okay.
before. Because we just, instead, we put bollards here.
Okay. I'm just gonna cross that. Okay, great. I was gonna say, we need a gate or another something.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's it.
It'll save you $5,000.
That's right. Hey, every
No.
little bit helps.
Get one of your railings for $5,000.
Bollards are probably yellow. Speaking of DPW.
Okay, any other questions before we turn it over to the public comment? Okay. If you, 1 second, Leonard. If you would like to make a comment, ask a question, say something about this project, please fill out a speaker slip, and I will read it in the order it's been presented. Leonard, you're up.
As most people on the Midcoast are aware, I don't usually say anything good about county design things, but I gotta say, I pretty much like this. I think that you've taken into account pretty much all of the community input, and I mean, you know, great job. The one thing I object to is I think that asphalt is always the worst choice of coating. You know, except on a freeway where it's good for 6 months, you have a really smooth ride and then it falls apart, and it's worse than if you'd built it right with concrete in the first place. And notice all freeways start out being only concrete. So I would really urge you to try and find something, anything other than asphalt. And if you watch the Public Works pothole patching here, you'll see liquid oil running away from their patches. And there's sensitive things here. You don't want that liquid oil running into some of those places. And asphalt has to be patched. It's a perpetual maintenance thing. You know, concrete costs 3 times as much to start with, but it lasts at least 3 times as long. Where you have that labeled Murata Surf or Murata West, that's really east. West is on the other side of the highway. There's 2 Murata Surf parcels, and that's the Murata Surf East parcel. So I understand you are going to leave the fence as is. You're not going to move the gate, rather.
We need to look at it.
Okay, because I don't understand the reasoning behind moving the gate, so I would urge you to save the money and just keep the gate the way it is. And by the way, there's like a half dozen different organizations with locks there. It's an interesting scheme. What was the distance from the crossings to the highway? That's on the order of 40 to 60 feet? What I'm getting at is, it looks like you've taken into account a major comment that I made about what's wrong with the crazy way that Half Moon Bay did it, where they move it right out to the highway so that if you're in a car stopped waiting to turn on the highway, now you're blocking the path, and if you stop back where the stop sign is, now you can't see the highway. So the way Half Moon Bay did it is really lame, and so I think that you're doing it the right way.
That's
okay,
right.
Great. And
I'd like to hope so.
let's see, Dan already covered the no bright colors, yay, on the truncated domes. So the last comment I have is, have you looked at the map to see where the intertie pipeline system is so that you're not building this on top of the intertie pipeline?
I'm glad you brought that up. We did actually adjust some of the trail location based on the utilities, and I think that was one comment was, hey, let's not put this on top of utilities so that if they need to replace it, that sort of thing, or maintain the utilities, they don't tear up the trail.
Because the intertie pipeline was built 35 years ago, and it's becoming a maintenance headache, and so if we have to keep digging up the trail to fix the pipeline, that could be a problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Leonard. Is there anybody else from the public that would like to make a comment, ask a question? Okay, great. We'll bring it back to the council. Council comments. Dave.
I have one comment, and this came up before, and it's not in the CEQA document, but it is in the presentation, which is pulled from the 30% design document. It calls for black vinyl coated chain link fence. Vinyl coated chain link fence out here tends to decay and throw plastic vinyl all over the place. So I would request that it be powder coated fencing of some kind, perhaps like a devil's slide, which I know is an expensive fence, but something other than vinyl coated.
Okay.
Thanks, Dave. Lisa?
As to the neg deck, the only comment I had is that the directions, it was very confusing to read unless you're actually looking at one of the maps. It started out saying the project area had Coronado to the north and the highway to the west, and which we think, that's how we think of it. I know that because the overall highway goes north to south, and I know in this section it is about a 45-degree angle, so it's basically northwest to southeast. But then somewhere in there, early on, it shifts to just talking about south of Highway 1 or west of Coronado, and I'm thinking, what? You know, it's this constant struggle.
Yeah.
It's constant struggle for people who live here or to picture it, you know. And if you were unfamiliar with the area and you were looking at the map, then it would probably make sense. But so I don't know what the answer is, and it's certainly not crucial to whether it gets approved or not. But that's just my comment on the neg deck, and otherwise seemed fine. As to the plans, I particularly like the pedestrian island that you put in Coronado. We like pedestrian crossing islands, and it was nice to see that there. And I do like the at the crossings, the side street crossings, that the emphasis now is not about all the trail users stopping and yielding to the vehicles. It's about the vehicles yielding, or at least the traffic calming feature of the speed table. I like that. Makes it safer for the trail users and keeps the flow. And that's all I have.
Okay. Thank you, Lisa. Dan?
Yes, one more comment about the intersection, the crossings. So, I see that I think in some areas, the trail widens up a little bit at the crossing. I see here, no, it's consistent. The width of the trail is consistent. The reason I'm bringing it up is I'm just kind of envisioning, you know, like 8:30 in the morning on a weekday. You know, cars are getting onto the highway and more, you know, whatever the maximum peak usage of the trail. When you have users of the trail and cars at the same time, and we need to make that work for both. If it was a little wider, and let's just say a bicycle is coming up, or a scooter, skateboard, whatever, is coming up, and there's a car right there already, right? And it's blocked. People are trying to make turns, so the car's in the way. If there was a gradual, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the trail, but certainly nothing to obstruct a bicyclist or to veer away from the highway and scoot behind the car and just keep going, as opposed to having to stop and wait for the car to get out of the trail, out of it. So if you can envision kind of like, yeah, just it doesn't necessarily have to be the width of the wider asphalt, but certainly nothing that could obstruct a bicycle or something, you know, other user to get, you know, behind the car, be like away from the, odds are the, you know, cars are going to be backing up going onto the highway, so it would be away from the highway, a little bit more of a curve or access to get around the car, behind the car.
I think they've already done that as much as they can and stay inside the right of way.
Yeah, I
But
think
the drawing shows that it's It's,
It's right big.
you know, and this speed bump might
Quite a
be,
bit back.
might impact that aspect that I'm talking about,
Can you
having,
go back to one of the ones that shows the, yeah, so this is quite a way back. This is quite a bit.
okay.
So I think
So
that may
I
only
think you
happen in,
understand,
I think
right?
that may happen in maybe one location where there's a number of, quite a number of homes that connect in.
Yeah,
forget which-
only Medio.
Medio, probably, yeah. So because that's maybe more of a busier location, it's only maybe one location that we might be concerned about that. We could add a sign, no stopping on the trail.
Yeah, it's like it's a railroad track, don't stop on it.
Right.
Yeah, there you
Yeah,
go.
or even
Yeah.
painted, I mean, you see it in front of fire stations and stuff, painted on the asphalt, you know, no stopping. Or
Yeah.
keep clear, I think
Keep
is what it
clear, yeah.
usually is.
Well, there's already a state law that you're not supposed to stop on a crosswalk, and
Well-
these are all officially crosswalks.
That's true, yeah.
So I don't think that's necessary, and if you do that, it'll interfere with crosswalk marking.
Mhm.
So I think they've actually taken a lot of our comments to heart and implemented them here.
Yeah, my question, I guess, would be if somebody does kind of go around a vehicle.
around the
is
back
that-
of a vehicle.
Yeah,
Right.
right. Is there a concern for cars not seeing that person? And-
Yeah, you're coming out from behind one car in front of another.
Yeah, so is
Well,
there a
the,
way to make
the
that?
car is moving in one direction, so if you're behind the car, that car's not gonna hit you.
Yeah, but if
Yeah,
the car
the-
going the other direction was the problem.
Yeah, say you were heading south on the trail and somebody made a right turn off the highway, you know,
Yeah.
at speed, they might not see them.
I mean, that's
coming
really
around.
the problem with the intersections with the.
Well, I'll be
traffic
partial-
south.
Partially you know, it's everybody's responsibility, right? It's the car, the driver's responsibility, it's the cyclist's responsibility to look ahead and see if that maneuver would be safe.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think that's a good point, that I think at Medio, that's, you know, could happen at rush hour.
Because, you know, I see the writing on the wall, traffic is just gonna get horrible, and every little thing that adds to it is just gonna make it worse. So the idea is to make this work well for both cars and
Okay, yeah, we'll
the
keep that
users
in
of
mind
the
and
trail.
look at that.
Do you think if that they're not allowed to stop on the crossing, would that address this?
I don't think that people would
Think
honor
they'll
that.
ignore
I,
that?
I
Yes,
think
I
they
do.
will, especially the first time there's an accident.
Well, again, that adds to impact of, you know, people, they're gonna miss their opportunity to get on the
No, they
highway.
won't, because there's one car at the highway, and then a gap,
Yeah.
say it's just one car away, for the sake of argument. There's one car ready to get on the highway, the other car has to wait 8 feet further back. That doesn't stop them from getting on the highway. It's not like they can't get up to the highway. If these had been right at the highway with the crosswalk, then it would have no problem, but I think this is, I've seen this in other places, and I think this works pretty well for a trail that's parallel to a highway.
If it's 60 feet back, that's 3 cars.
Yeah, and I think the humps will also alert people that, you know, it will just elevate their attention to the matter, I think. They'll
Yeah.
feel the car, you know, they'll, like you said, the tactile sensation of the hump, they'll see the lines.
And remember, there aren't huge numbers of visitors going back into these streets. These are relatively small residential neighborhoods. It's the same people doing it all the time, with rare exceptions for Airbnb. Whoa. Gotta get that in there.
Okay.
Well, the main thing is to not have anything unnecessary that would allow, because I would do that. If there's a car there, I would just go around, I would check, make sure there's another car, not another car coming the other way, and I'd keep going. I wouldn't be, so, and I think it's valid. I think as time goes, you know, every little help is, would be appreciated.
Thanks,
Thank
Ed.
you.
Other comments, council? Laura?
Yes, I brought this up before and I didn't have a lot of support, but I won't give up easily. You have obviously gone to great pains to try to make this fit into our rural atmosphere, which is what we asked for. And I want to go back to Leonard's comment about asphalt, which I completely and totally agree with. And I'm wondering if we are stuck with asphalt or if there's any reason that we can't look at other trail surfaces. And obviously, It also depends on how the rest of my cohorts feel about that.
What other kind of surfaces were you thinking of?
Most anything.
Decomposed granite has been
DG
used on
would be
bike
great.
trails in the
Yes.
past with significant success. And we had arguments about that from DPW, that they thought it would be harder to maintain. I think it's easier to maintain decomposed granite, you just kind of fill it up, roll it over, rather
Yes.
than asphalt. But I lost that one the last 2 times I brought it up. I'm with you.
I can tell you,
Okay.
yeah, I can tell you based on your comment from last time, or maybe yours, that we did look at colored concrete,
Uh-huh.
and it surprisingly it didn't add that much to the cost, but it is inconsistent with all the other trails that you do have. I mean, they are all asphalt trails, and that's not to say that, well, just because all the other ones are like that, you know, it's a good choice for this one, but and that you can't do something different. But I think maintenance crews appreciate consistency and standards, you know, and I think that there's an aesthetic as you're riding along, it's consistent.
Except, okay, as you're speaking, I didn't mean to cut you
No,
off.
I think, I mean, that was the discussion and consideration up to this point, so.
Okay, one of the things that we look at is making a delineation between our towns, Obanata, Moss Beach, Half Moon Bay. Now, it's Half Moon Bay's, the end of their trail where we're picking up, correct? Which means Half Moon Bay is the one who's gonna maintain their asphalt, and we'll be maintaining our own area, correct?
Right.
So, that will dissolve the argument of maintenance crews having to be responsible for different surfaces.
Well, my question, what's the material of the trail across the highway, the coastal trail?
It is
Coastal
asphalt.
Trail is asphalt.
It's asphalt.
Yeah.
Oh, the one that's going, oh, the
It
highway.
goes through West Marana and down.
Yeah, the whole-
That's kind of a sore point.
A real sore point.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
weren't
sure.
happy with that.
Yeah,
Sure.
it's like an expressway from what used to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So what would it take for us to get, say, for example, DG there?
I don't think DG is going to be
Santa Cruz did it.
accepted by the county. I think, as you mentioned, their perspective is more maintenance. And so I think that that's just not something that they're going to consider.
What, is it true about the maintenance?
Well, it's up
Or
for
depends on
argument.
who you talk to.
So, but Santa Cruz actually did this with a bicycle trail, down near, Morrissey. And it was in an area that went through a meadow and crossed a creek. And there was a lot of concern about the aesthetics because it was formerly just a dirt trail. And after a lot of discussion, they wound up with DG. Now, it's been 2 years since they put that in. We could certainly find out what the maintenance has been. But my understanding is that it's been pretty successful.
And I've designed DG trails that have lasted 15 years, and they look great now. I don't know how many times they've reconstructed it or maintained it or whatever, but.
I would just have to put in a word, and I think we discussed, but I have to put in a word for the practicality of DG versus asphalt. I don't like asphalt either, who does, but road cyclists with skinny tires are gonna have a problem on DG. Those bikes, those tires are not made for DG surfaces, and so those riders will and this, whether that should be the case or not, this multimodal over here is more of a transportation corridor. Yes, West Marana, that should have never been paved. That was our opportunity to not have it paved. That's the trail that should be DG. But this more of commuter transportation trail on this side, you got kids riding to school. They don't want to get, mud and stuff. I know DG is not muddy, but it will have, stuff will splash up, and you will have puddles. You will have, road bikers will not ride on it, so they'll be back on the highway, riding on the highway shoulder again. Whereas right now, though I don't like the trail, when I get to the Frenchman's Creek stoplight, I get off Highway 1, I get on the multimodal and ride it down past the nursery to where it goes back to Highway 1 again. So as a road rider, I don't think road riders are gonna wanna ride on a DG surface.
Well, my feeling is, however, that as more children use those trails, road riders in no way are gonna be using those trails, because they're gonna wanna be speeding on down the highway in their fancy, expensive bicycle.
Well, like I said, I purposely get off the Highway 1 to save myself, and because it gives a little bit of variety and flavor. You know, you've got a couple of turns, you go through a bridge, and again, the coastal trail has a lot more foot traffic on weekends and nice days and in the summer, and so that's not really much of a commuter path. I usually avoid that on my bikes and either go on Highway 1 or go down to where the multimodal starts up in Half Moon Bay. So we'll have two trails here, and I do think one of them should be thought of as a commuter trail, and sadly, because we already have West Marana paved, it seems like this multimodal trail is more of the commuter trail. And so in that sense, my pitch would still be like, I like what you're saying, I don't like asphalt. Could we have some other color in there? I think I'm remembering Maui, they have the red volcanic hills, their bike paths are red. They have like deep red bike paths that kind of go with the color of the hills. So I certainly am not an advocate of black asphalt, but nor am I a big fan of the DG for this particular segment.
Are there colored asphalts commercially available that are not ridiculously expensive?
That are not expensive?
I know they're gonna cost more, the question is ridiculously.
They are sort of oddly a lot more. I don't know.
They're specialty.
You know, yeah, exactly. I mean, they're rarely used, right? And so maintenance is also then an issue too, because then you gotta match it. I think the question too is, practically speaking, how do you expect the county to be maintaining the DG? Do you expect that they'll maintain it to the level that you would like it to be?
What's your experience been?
With county maintenance? I don't live in an unincorporated area.
Oh, okay, you slid right out of this one, okay.
Can I weigh in on this one?
Please.
I think I agree with Chris. I think that the battle, and we're looking at one coming up soon, Pillar Point Bluff, they're working on trail plans there, and Let's Have Packed Earth, and I think this is the last ditch thing, but, you know, we fought hard on the Dardanelle Trail, and we got something that was, had been tried, but at least it's not asphalt. And Murata Surf West was like, I don't know, when I tuned in, it was 2009, I was told, oh, it's a done deal, can't change it now. So that's too bad, but I think this East Side Trail functionally, and in that it's in the highway right of way, and more of a, not so much a scenic route. If you wanted to take the scenic route, you'd take the time to go across and to use the coastal trail. It's more of a direct route, and so I could live with it. And I'm your original, you know, natural trails person, so I don't know, this is where I would say it's just more important to get this thing in, and plus I really don't think the county's gonna do anything but asphalt in this case.
Let me ask the council here, as I'm kind of processing everybody's comments and thinking about a comment letter. If we were gonna make a comment on this particular thing, could our comment be, could you please investigate and look to use some kind of colored asphalt as your first option, you know, to get at least some nod towards a more natural color, brown asphalt or something like that?
This came up with the Montero State Beach part. There's no colored asphalt. It's just black. It doesn't exist.
It exists, but it costs
Prohibitively expensive, okay.
I'll take Jason's word for it.
We-
I was pretty
we-
sure of that answer.
You've been out at least twice at different stages of planning this, and we had the discussion of trail surface already. So to have them go on this long with this project and then weigh in now seems to me a little late. You know, we did have the discussion. I don't know, sure it's in the minutes, but we didn't.
had the discussion, but it wasn't,
We deadlocked just like we are now.
Yeah.
we had the discussion.
And 30% design is a perfect time to talk about changes, but I don't think we're gonna get a council majority vote for a change of color material.
Okay.
I mean, that's my take on what I'm hearing.
Well, I tell you what, I think it's very sad, and the reason I say that is I have had so many people complain about this horrendous asphalt on the other side, so then to say, and then the excuses I've been giving are, well, we have to make it the same as Half Moon Bay leaves it at this end, and it's like, oh, so we made a mistake once, so now let's repeat it again in another expensive project.
And I'm not schooled enough, it sounds like you know more about trail surfaces. Is there something that satisfies aesthetics as well as cyclists?
Well, as I say, DG has been used quite successfully for bike paths. I've ridden bike paths on my narrow 1 1/8 inch tires with decomposed granite, and no trouble at all,
That's
including
what I
in the
thought.
rain. But, you know, I don't think I'm gonna convince Chris of that. And it sounds like, and Claire and Dan, you guys haven't weighed in on this. Do you have an opinion on what?
Thoughts on the trail surface?
I'm hearing what everybody says, and I kind of agree with what, as I hear it, so I don't know enough about trail surfaces to really have a strong opinion. Colored concrete is not an option, is that what you say?
Well, I'll say it was considered,
Okay.
but for consistency and cost.
I would be opposed to concrete because these soils are moving a lot, and we're gonna wind up with a lot of cracks and ridges if we go with concrete. And we'll have that with asphalt too, but asphalt's easier to repair than concrete. So I would really be opposed to concrete on most of this.
Dan, what are your thoughts as a cyclist?
I like the trail to look more natural whenever possible. Yes.
So you're a DG advocate?
I have to say so, yes.
So Dan, DG, Lisa, non-DG, DG.
Well, let me, I don't want to be in the asphalt column. I'm just saying.
I don't either.
We won't put you there.
You're on the record, asphalt.
In this situation, I think, you know, we've been waiting for this trail for so long. And finally, you know, and you have been so responsive on so many features on this trail coming back and incorporating that into the design. And when this gets put in and the people from Half Moon Bay see how cool it is with no bollards in the way and all that other stuff, they're going to want to redo their trail. So, I mean, I think the trail surface is the least of it. I think you've done a great job. And realistically, I don't think the county's going to give us anything different, and it just feels ungrateful to squawk about it at this point.
Okay, I hear that. Let me ask the council this, especially the DG advocates. Well, actually, everybody. Does it have any value putting in a comments letter, you know, the council has concerns about trail surface, like it look as natural as possible, you know, essentially do what you can, ... Is that a helpful comment?
They already know that.
Yeah, that comment was made during the last round of meetings, and they're on record. And obviously, they've responded to quite a few of our other comments, which I really appreciate. So clearly, they decided they weren't going to go with that comment. So making a comment again does not, unless we have a strong suggestion and a reason why it's the way to go. And I'm not quite hearing that.
I just want to point to Dan's success and through our efforts with bumpy pads being changed from yellow to gray. So somehow the squeaky wheel does get oiled and it does get hurt. And so to just say, oh, well, everything's dandy and fine and we'll be good kids and not complain. This is something that's going to be with us for a long time and to me very important. And so I'm not so readily wanting to give it up.
Okay, so I'm sorry, 1 second, Lisa. So you would still advocate a line in the letter about the council has concerns about trail surface and would prefer a different surface than asphalt?
Yes, and I would even volunteer me and Dave's time.
I'm willing.
How generous of you, yes.
If necessary to meet, you know, if maybe we need to meet individually with DPW.
Or it sounds like Jason has experience. Maybe
Yeah,
you
exactly.
could make some time to meet with us and tell us what works and doesn't work and why and what the alternatives are.
Yes, exactly.
Sure, absolutely. And, you know, I think if you are intending to put together, you know, a formal letter, I think that it's appropriate to put that in there, that at least that you have a concern and then it gets addressed. And like you say, if you have these similar comments consistently, you know, that I think, like you say, the squeaky wheel gets greased. That, you know, ultimately maybe they look at a different standard, or, you know, at least consider it a little bit more thoughtfully.
Okay.
Chris?
Yes, Lisa.
Oh, I just wanted I think that the analogy with the yellow bumpy pads, the thing that's missing there is that the cost is no different, the maintenance is no different. It was an easy thing for them to accommodate when we asked for that. Whereas Asphalt's the cheapest, and it's the simplest for them. That's the appeal, I understand that. And I think like I say, it might have been on tonight's meeting, but soon we need to have a agenda item on trail surfaces, and this relates to Pillar Point Bluff. It's gonna be the next one. This came up at the meeting with the Harbor District, and when they said they were gonna leave that trail out there at Pillar Point as DG, we were thrilled with that, put that in the letter. I did have this conversation with Joanne Kravavas about the state parks parking lot where they are planning to put in asphalt, and talked about the alternatives and why they were doing that, and it seemed like that's all they could afford, and that's what they're gonna do. And so, if we have time at our next meeting, maybe we should just talk about trail services in general.
Okay, I've got on my notes here for a potential agenda item.
And by the way, Tim Duff at the Coastal Conservancy suggested that we get Go Native, Dave Sands or Chuck Kozak to come talk to us or talk to the county about trail surfaces.
That would be great.
Okay, I will be reaching out to you, Lisa.
I have an argument to counter, however.
Counter
Bumpy
the maintenance cost
No,
argument?
bumpy pads.
Oh, bumpy pads.
Bumpy pads.
The bumpy pad
I
analogy?
have to
Okay.
tell you why the bumpy pad analogy is closer than one would think. Because initially, the county told us they had all sorts of yellow bumpy pads that they bought, and that's why it would be less expensive for them to use the yellow bumpy pads. But they did come around to our
If they're using yellow bumpy pads somewhere.
Yeah, Redwood City is rife with yellow bumpy pads, apparently. Not
it's-
Redwood, Emerald Hills or something.
Definitely the trend, and a lot of developments are away from the yellow. There's no doubt about it. You just have to look.
And the other thing is, we don't have a real deadline on this, because this isn't a CEQA comment, so it doesn't have to be done by the 9th of September. So if we can meet with you, we can research some stuff, and as Lisa suggests, maybe we should incorporate that in a letter, and we can put a paragraph or two about that in the parallel trail and send it on to you folks.
I don't know if that's in his contract as far as budget to give us time. He's
Well,
not a
okay,
county-
if it's not Jason, then, you know, Mike Schaller or
We'll
somebody,
figure it out.
Joe Lococo will be able to.
We'll meet on the
this.
trail.
Leonard, you had a comment you wanted to make?
Yeah, as far as the CEQA angle of this, my point about the patches having liquid oil running off, I think is really significant when you're looking at the CEQA issues. And, you know, as a bicyclist a long time ago, and I'd like to get back into it, I gotta tell you, riding on asphalt is I mean, riding on concrete is really nice. And go find a photo of the path across Santa Monica Beach. It might be a little tricky because from a distance, you can't tell where the trail is because it's sand-colored concrete, and it's gorgeous. So, and, you know, if you gotta do asphalt, look into rubberized asphalt, but I just think there's so many arguments against, DG. Burn Smith showed me in Half Moon Bay where there's DG there, and he said the DG is self-healing.
It is.
That when you get a depression in the DG, people going across it, it just sort of naturally smooths itself back out. And if you do concrete, you put in rebar and you don't have Dave's concerns.
Okay. Okay, so, any other comments right now? Okay, I just want to make I'm sorry, Dave?
No, I just wanted to repeat again, I'm really happy about the changes in response to earlier comments for the council and public. Thank you.
Yeah, similarly, I just want to say thank you for the school cutoffs, the route up to the school. I mean, that right there is just so nice. The kids right now, if they're coming, they have to cross at the light or, come in through the back. That's just a really nice feature there. Thank you for moving the crossings back from the intersections. Thank you for the minimal lighting. Thank you for no bollards in the trail. I mean, these are all things comments that were made in the previous presentation that were listened to. And per Leonard's comment, I mean, thank you. We really appreciate that. But tonight, as Dave pointed out, this is the CEQA document. Comment period ends on the 9th. So per the CEQA document, does anybody have any comments that they would like to include in that? I've noted Leonard's discussion of the asphalt, which I believe I read in there that that was considered of limited concern. But so I have that listed there. Anybody else have comments regarding the CEQA document? I guess my comment would be that I read through it and I felt that, I mean, not to denigrate county, but kind of as Leonard was saying, I felt that when I read through it, I found myself going, yeah, as opposed to other CEQA documents, to remain nameless, that I read through that I went, what? No way. So, again, hats off on there. I really did not have any issues with the CEQA document. Other council members?
I had the same reaction.
Lisa?
Yeah, the only thing I had was just the north, south, east, west, and that's not really
Okay, so directional language, okay.
I mean, we don't need to put that in the letter, it's just,
Okay,
it's
just,
really interesting to read the stuff, the biological assessment, all that, I like that.
What?
Not on CEQA, but one thing that I forgot to accentuate was that pedestrian island that you put in, because not only, as someone who goes in and out of there every day, when those cars come in off the highway, they have this huge wide arc. So if you're in the opposite lane, you're like, oh my God.
Right.
So I think that that will be very useful to provide a level of safety for not getting smashed into by.
That's a good point. When you're in that front
Being
car
in-
there, you're just.
Yeah. You're
Um,
really close.
But per your comments earlier, I mean,
Mhm.
so the design, that's one thing, but part of the CEQA was aesthetics.
Well, then you know my thoughts.
Yes.
How can I clarify them anymore?
Well, I guess, would you want that comment included in our letter, and then I need to ask the other council members? I guess we already had that discussion, but it seemed like it was more in the context of the design. Now we're on to the CEQA document, and there is an aesthetic section in there.
Well, Dave can explain better than I because he's more knowledgeable, but what I want to see happen is an examination of the trail surfaces.
So I will
And what
try
the
and do
options
more
are.
research. If you have any pointers to anything, I'd appreciate it if you'd send them to me. And if you have, just in past projects, don't spend any time on it.
And Chris, why I especially see this important is because what we're doing here is we're setting a precedent for all the projects on down the road. Because so far, we have been told there's nothing you can do except asphalt on the coast. And to me, every single time we have an opportunity to say, no, here's some other options, and we'll start to learn about what the costs are, and, for example, learn from you with the pluses, minuses, et cetera, the smarter we become, the closer we get to what we want, and the standards changing.
Okay. Let's keep in mind, we've got to stay below that $3 million threshold, so,
Yeah.
okay, so mitigation of aesthetic impact of black asphalt trail surface, request further investigation. Okay. Other,
By the way, Dan made an issue out of the right white concrete, and the last little bits of concrete they did over across from whatever the name of that cafe is this week, are the
Press.
colored asphalt.
Are what?
Colored concrete.
Colored concrete.
Yeah, the sand.
Really?
Yeah, it's the sand colored concrete that's elsewhere in Eldorado.
Wow, that's great.
I think the difference in cost is just between asphalt and concrete. It's not so much the color in the concrete that's more expensive, is it?
Yeah, colored concrete isn't really.
Yeah,
much-
it's just-
Much more. I mean, it is.
Concrete is more
additional
expensive.
cost.
but we had been discussing possibly colored asphalt, which
There-
Dave said
yeah,
was
there-
much more expensive.
Well, going what Jason said, I vaguely remember hearing this before.
Which is very rare too. I mean, that's the tough part.
So we, to go back to 2009, the MCC held a Trails Forum. And I was sitting there at the front sign-in sheet with samples of natural pave, you know what I'm talking about? It's, use it up at Land's End in the city. It's it's like hard DG, but it really does stay hard. And so basically, it's a hard, durable surface, but visually, it looks like a dirt trail. And this is an area which wide, a lot of people going, so they use that, and we were, and once again, we were told, oh, well, it's untried, we can't do it, whatever, but, basically, I think we need to go all the way back to then and pull all this stuff back out and have an agenda item on trail surfaces, but
Okay.
I don't know if it's gonna happen for this trail, but,
Okay.
it's long overdue.
Yeah, I agree. I think that would be excellent.
Do
Okay,
we
are
need
there?
to,
Oh, sorry.
I was just thinking politically who we need to involve to help us, but we can talk about that offline.
Okay. Do we have any other comments for the CEQA document for the September 9 deadline? Okay. I don't have any, so we have a limited number of comments. The potential runoff issue with the asphalt, directional language in the document is a little bit confusing, and the potential mitigation of the aesthetic impact of black asphalt trail surface. Other than that, MCC supports the CEQA document, thinks it's,
Yeah, any way that you can put it, because in my opinion, and what I heard is that, I thought it was really well done, that we were listened to.
yeah.
However you say that.
So separating the two things, the
Yes.
plans and the secret document,
Yes.
I think basically, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you have, at this point, you would say, if there's inadequacies in the secret document, you would point those out,
Yeah.
if you think something has not been adequately addressed.
Yes. Okay, so can I get a feeling from the MCC here? Do you feel, with the possible exception of those 3 items I just listed, do you feel there are inadequacies with the CEQA document?
No, I don't.
Okay, so I think we might need a motion here because I probably will be writing this letter before September 9th. We don't have another meeting, so.
So what are the inadequacies that we,
So the 3 things that we have discussed, which are minor things, are the potential harmful runoff from asphalt. How would that be mitigated? Directional language.
Specifically, the patching that they do.
The
is
patching,
bigger problem.
thank you, patching. Patching, so patching of the asphalt and the runoff that comes from that, how would that be mitigated? The directional language in the document is a bit confusing. Could that be tightened up?
I don't think that even merits being put in the
Okay, we
letter.
don't,
Yeah, I think that's
Just-
mostly from different
just-
studies talking about it differently.
Just next time, I think about that more. No, that's,
okay, and then the mitigation of aesthetic impact of black asphalt trail surface. So basically asphalt twice. Asphalt's our only issue that we had with this document.
So if you're going to write a letter saying that we find those are inadequacies in the document, I'm just saying, I can tell you what the answer's gonna be. It's in the table there, and we see this in all the neg decks. And they're gonna tell you how it's mitigated, and it's therefore not significant.
So then what would be the point of submitting any comments?
I don't
So-
see any point in submitting any comments, is where I'm going.
So, okay, and I was gonna get to this, but since Lisa's brought it up, basically what we're asking is that they say it is not insignificant and that they have to mitigate it, which does force quite a bit of additional work. And do we wanna go that far?
Okay. Do we want to go that far? I personally do not. I like this document. I mean, there's certainly, there are
I
a
mean,
couple of things.
I think we should put the comment in, but if you're trying to address inadequacies of CEQA,
Yeah.
then really,
Yeah.
I mean, I really do not want to see this lifted to a significant impact.
Right, right. Okay, I'm trying to get a general sense here, because we write a general letter. My feeling is we support this document, we think it's adequate, and we don't see any significant inadequacies in the document.
So you don't need to write a letter.
We don't want to make a comment?
If you think it's good, you don't need to do anything.
Yeah, we made the verbal comments. It's only if county wants a letter of support that we would need to do that.
But I mean, you don't support the neg deck, you just point out where it's inadequate, that's
So if
what.
you don't have anything, you
Yeah,
don't comment.
Okay,
Right,
so
exactly.
then my
That's
feeling is a
generally
letter
the
is
case.
not required, even though we have pointed out a couple of issues that we're not thrilled with.
So now,
they-
okay, so that's issue number 2. So we figured out that issue number 1 is we don't have to comment on CEQA. We're happy.
Right.
right?
Right.
So then
I
what,
believe that we've
how are
reviewed
we gonna address the trail surface issue, which seems to be the,
Okay, so the designs are not, this is not a comment period for the actual designs. So we had lightly discussed here a possible agenda item in the future dealing with trail surfaces. I think that would be a time generated from that agenda item. We might have some document that we could send on to county planning about our feelings about trail surfaces.
oh, generated from our future meeting?
Listing this as an example, this would be a cited topic in the letter.
And let's get Jason's thoughts on how we might best address this.
Address the trail surface going forward for this project.
For this project.
Yeah. Yeah, for your project.
Right. I mean, certainly it's something that I will look at and discuss, but I think that maybe a direct conversation after the meeting, offline, talking about options and with the county. Because really, I mean, I think ultimately the county has to maintain it. And so we want something that will be maintained. We don't want something that will fall into disrepair and not be maintained. And if you're talking about this being an example project for all future trails in the county or on the coast side, do you want to establish a standard? I think you certainly want, if you're going to do that, you certainly want it to be this project, to be consistent with that. So, I think it's part of a bigger discussion that needs to happen, for sure. And I don't want this project, I don't want to be part of a project that goes forward that's inconsistent with what ends up being a standard that's different.
Yeah.
Or becoming a pilot project that doesn't work out either. I want it to be a successful project that lasts a long time and it's thought of well 5, 10, 20 years from now. So I think it deserves a thorough discussion, and I want to make sure that everybody's interests are addressed as far as that's concerned as well. So there's a lot of competing interests, Caltrans standards. Caltrans has to approve this, county maintenance, like I said, but also the users, have to be happy with it. So if we can have a discussion offline as a smaller group with county staff, I think that would be helpful. But I think it's worthwhile having, for sure.
And I think Laura and I are certainly volunteering to do that.
Yeah, at least David is, I know.
Okay, well, I like the synergy that's going on here with Lisa's idea of a trail surface agenda item, this particular project, and maybe what we can do here. So, I mean, I like it. We're working in the right direction here, I feel. Okay, well, I think that the ultimate result of this discussion tonight is more information about the project, and we agree that no comment is needed on the CEQA document. And so with that, if there's no more further comment on this topic, I will close this agenda item. Really want to say thank you to Jason, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jason.
Please tell Mike, great job, and we missed him, and we'll have to see him the next time around, but you guys did a great job, really, thank you. Thank you. Okay, now we're on to council activity. Anybody want to talk about stuff they did?
Yeah, I went to the third meeting on the still-to-be-named historic trail, formerly known as the Port Ballot Trail. The trail alignment is much more substantial at this point. It looks like we probably will get a grant from the GGNRA. They have a planning group that helps people with fundamental planning and things like this. One of their representatives was at the meeting yesterday. And we've heard from representatives of 2 of the Indian tribes. There's a consensus, there's a strong consensus at this point, it's just San Mateo County, maybe expanded later, and that it's both historical from the Spanish-Mexican period as well as the indigenous peoples. So moving along is probably going to start breaking up into smaller committees from now on to do the actual work rather than the steering committee doing everything.
Right, oh, that's exciting. Good, thanks, Dave. Anybody else? Okay, I've got a couple things. So at the Coastside Design Review meeting on August 11th, a couple things. Just wanted to give a shout out to Ron Madsen. He's been the El Granada representative for over 10 years, and he's timed out now. But he's done a great job, and I think we're going to do a little something for him at the October CDRC meeting. But I just wanted to say thanks to Ron for over a decade of service in that position.
Can you advertise that somehow so people know?
About that?
Yeah.
Yeah, when I get more information about exactly what we're gonna do and which meeting, yeah, maybe we
Okay.
could put a little blurb on the MCC website or something. Because Ron has, I mean, he really has put a lot of effort into it.
from day one,
And
yeah.
over 10 years, I mean. Another thing that came out of that is based on comments from Nori Gerardo-Leitz at the last meeting. I asked county staff what the policy is for CDRC, because as part of, it's an expected part of a project review that you go to the site and you go onto the site and you look around. You look at the story poles, you walk around the edges of the site. And since this was brought up at the last meeting, I asked county staff what their thoughts were. And their feeling was, as CDRC, you're acting as an agent for the county, and so therefore you can go on to property to look at it without worrying about that. There was some scratching of head about that, and people in the CDRC were not sure about that. Some people said, well, do we need some kind of identification or something? How do people know? And that was kind of mulled around. So actually, Tim Fox, county council, is going to be there at our next meeting, I guess, in a couple of weeks. And so I will ask him that question, get his input on that. Also, for those projects, a notification is posted on the property. This is from county council. Notification is posted on the property, and that indicates access is okay for CDRC personnel and purposes. That's a person's interpretation. We'll hear from, I'll get back from Tim Fox after the next meeting. I'll let the council know what I heard. Also attended the most recent Mid-Penn open house. I was there all 5 hours actually, because I wanted to hear at each hour when the architect and Felix presented the plans. I wanted to hear each different group of people that listened and what their questions were, which was actually, I thought, oh my God, I brought a book and my computer, and it's.
You got a lot of cookies, that's all I have.
It went by pretty fast because, there was a lot of questions, a lot of discussion. Most, I would say, dealing with topics that we already know: traffic mitigation, density, and just a lot of people just feel that they're not being heard. So, but it was good to go to that meeting. I didn't get to go to the first one, so I'm glad I went to this one. And I don't know if I announced at the last meeting, but I am now the official CDRC representative for El Granada.
Congratulations
Oh,
and welcome.
Thank you. And the dog policy for San Mateo County Parks Committee meets on September 19th. It's our first meeting, so we'll be moving forward with that. If you have a thought on that, send me an email, and I will take that with me to the committee, and we will consider those comments.
September what?
19th. That's all for me. Anybody else? Okay. Future agendas, we're looking at trail surfaces. As Leonard said, there's a GCSD meeting tomorrow, and based on the outcome of that meeting, I might want to sponsor an agenda item regarding county's position on median development. So we'll see how that goes. And if there's no other, Lisa, yes.
So we could aim to do trail surfaces at the September 14 meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And I would, so I'll reach out to the guys at Go Native, but the way it was worded was that get them to talk to the county. So if we could have someone from the county come to that meeting, might work well.
Public Works
So-
person?
Well, county parks, maybe?
So I talked to Sam Hertzberg yesterday, and both the Quarry Park Master Plan and the Pillar Point stuff is being worked on. And if we ask him to come soon, everything will still be in progress, and it's gonna be, we're looking at that, we should have more in a week or two. So he suggested we wait at least a month before we have him come out here and talk about park stuff. Both Pillar
Well,
Point
that
Bluff
would-
and Quarry Park.
That would be for him to come and tell us what they're gonna do. But what we wanna do is get in underneath that and tell him what we want for trail
Yeah.
surfaces before he gets there.
Understood, but I'm saying they're still researching a lot of that stuff. So
Lisa-
I'm not saying don't do it, I just wanted to make sure I passed that on, because I told Sam I'd pass that on.
Lisa, are you saying invite him as, please come to our meeting and hear what this, what the topic of discussion, or be a person that participates?
Well, at a minimum, come. Yeah, if this works out, well, we can talk about this as we got 3 weeks before the next meeting, so if you're gonna have anything related to parks that he might attend anyway,
Yeah.
then that would make it even more timely to have the trail surfaces meeting so that he could hear it while he's here.
Yeah, okay.
Mostly, I guess it's a listening thing. We
Yeah.
wanted to get some people on our side to come and present some options, and we want the county to hear it.
Right.
Well, and it might be nice to extend an invitation to Don, because I think this is something that's very important
Yeah, so
for him to
let's,
be educated as well.
let's see if it can be pulled together for that date, and it's not the end of the world if it doesn't, but soon.
No, I like it. I hope that it can happen. Oh, Claire, yes.
This is probably not an agenda item, but Elliot was thinking maybe you could bring us some information. There was an editorial in the Review last week about a different approach that the county's taking, mostly through Don's initiative, to handle mentally ill and substance abuse people who are out of control in the community, which would involve more community participation. I'm just kind of curious about it, and I think it might be good for the community to be aware of what's being done.
Yes.
If you could at least bring us some information on that.
That would be great.
Is there someone at county that would be possibly interested in coming and, giving us short presentation on that? We've had other, general presentations on topics like that.
Yeah, I'll go back and ask the supervisor what his suggestion would be happy to look into that.
Yes.
Great, okay. Good suggestion, Claire. One second. Okay, sorry.
So-
Yeah, go ahead.
So I had told you Valmar Bluff for October 12th, but that may I had told you Valmar Bluff for September 28th. That may have to move to the 12th, depending on how these candidate forms shape up. It's a rather complicated process.
Yes, right, and I really appreciate, Laura, your work on that, also Lisa as well. I mean, really, thank you.
It's mostly Laura.
We talked today, yes.
Yes, we did.
But the community, that's really a community benefit, and thank you for working on that. Okay, any other comments? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.